Hi, my name's Al. I've been collecting toys on and off for 9 years now, and this channel is where I share my thoughts on action figures and toy collecting. Today, we're gonna talk about Figma's Samurai from the FALSLANDER line. This character has no published story or lore, but I'll talk about what might have been the inspiration for the design, do a bit of comparison to the other FALSLANDER characters, and tell you whether it's worth keeping or letting go. While you're here, make sure to check my affiliate links below, and if you make a purchase through those links, that will certainly help my channel. Over the years, I've become selective on what to purchase and add onto my collection, and I now rarely come across a figure line where I want to collect everything. But it's a different story when it comes to this line. FALSLANDER is a series of illustrations by the artist Neco, and you can find his other works on X, formerly Twitter. Samurai is the fourth and last out of the bunch to be released as a Figma. But if I'm going to be honest, they're not the best out there when it comes to overall features. But what makes this figure interesting? For now, let's start with the unboxing. Inside the box is a cardboard insert, and I don't know what color this is. Taped at the back is an art card for Samurai with nice drawings, but no information about the character. We also get the instruction manual. One side is in Japanese and the other side in English. And this is the longest instruction sheet I've seen so far. We also get the Figma zip bag and parts for the stand, spare hands, and spare joint all in one pack. At first glance, I'm already loving the deeper colors compared to Land's Writer. Weight is nice and seems balanced, which would be good for posing. There are some paint imperfections I'll discuss later, and she smells like a fresh action figure should. Now let's take in the details. Samurai has an asymmetrical aesthetic with more armor on her left side. Similar to other FALSLANDER Figma, she has a black suit with matte and glossy textures, mixed with both a traditional and cyberpunk aesthetic. These elements make for a nice contrast in the overall look, past and future merged in a cohesive design. Her pink hair is notably more saturated than her sister's, and I really like how her round orange eyes look. However, some paint bleed can be seen on the red tie on her head, which may further bleed into the pink hair in the future. Her armor parts have a laminar design which is in line with the samurai theme, and similar patterns can be seen with her arms and legs. The red parts are bright and adds pop to the overall look. The number 1 is printed on her right boob, which could mean she's the first among her siblings, and bits of yellow can be seen here and there. The sculpt is nice, especially the torso, as you can see the shape of her tummy, and of course there's the chest, which has a nice perky shape. The butt is also sculpted into the thighs, and I think the shape is somewhat better when compared to her siblings. At first, I thought the design on the half skirt looks a bit off, but if you look at the outline and the design of the shin guards, arm guards, and shoulder armor, the patterns are quite similar. Meanwhile, her unarmored leg has a gloss black texture, which is unique when compared to her sisters. So here's something interesting I noticed on her design. While Ronin has softer patterns like clouds, waves, and circular stuff, Samurai's patterns are pointed and rectangular. So the contrast in terms of texture and paint finish is not only within the figure itself, but also between her sisters in pattern and shape. With these contrasting patterns, these two could look like modern-day representations of the Japanese gods Raijin and Fujin, with Raijin being samurai representing lightning, and Fujin will be Ronin representing wind. If this was indeed the inspiration for these two, we now have this ancient gods theme running across these three figures with Hemet Nettle as Anubis. There's a chance I might be pushing it too far, but the lack of lore certainly invites speculation and imagination. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section below. Now let's see how she moves. Figma Samurai's head has full rotation and swivels side to side. The base of the neck connects to the body with a ball joint that allows a bit of extra movement on her neck. The hair part is soft and flexible. She can look down this much and look up this much. The shoulder armor has a ball hinge, and with a small twist, they can go all the way up, which I don't think you can do with Ronin and Land's Writer. Left arm movement can be limited by this armor piece, but it can come off. There's no butterfly joint, but the shoulders have full rotation. Her upper arm can rotate, and the elbow armor has a bit of movement. Hands can fully rotate and swivel. Her arms can bend more than 90 degrees on a single joint, and this is how it looks like at the back. The tail on her back is on a ball hinge, so it can move in different directions. Her torso has an acceptable side-to-side bend, but can only rotate on the upper part. Samurai can bend forward a lot and bend back this much. As usual for extreme poses, the joints will be exposed at the back, and at the front is a hole and peg that will sort of prevent you from exposing her joints, which is a nice extra feature. There's good hip movement, but unlike the other FALSLANDER figmas, you can't pull the hip joints down for better leg articulation. Without this extending hip feature, the legs can move forward and back only this much, and side to side this much. There's a bit of rotation on the hips because there's a ball joint there, and the thighs can rotate on both the armored and unarmored legs. Legs bend more than 90 degrees on a single joint, and unlike Lan's Rider, there's no knee armor, so it may look awkward there. She has rotation and swivel on her high heels, but as usual, this will be limited by the armor. On the unarmored parts, the foot can move freely. These joints allow her feet to pivot, but has no toe bend. The articulation is what you'd normally see with Figma. Compared with her sisters though, there's not a lot of improvement except on the neck and arms, and leg articulation is somewhat worse. Sitting poses would therefore not be as good because of the absence of the extendable hip joints, but you can still make it work. I still enjoy doing action poses with her, and I'm happy with what we have here. So yeah, overall with Figma, you couldn't really have it all, but I still hope they would release another one from this line with the updated double-jointed extremities. And if they do, it's probably going to be announced by February next year. Now, let's check what else she's got. Figma Samurai has 3 faceplates: an expressionless face, a blushing face, and a glaring face with mouth open. I particularly like the blushing face better on Samurai with the additional lines and anime look when compared with Lan's Rider, which just looks like a pink smudge. Faceplates can be swapped by taking off her hairpiece first and then the faceplate and replacing it with the one you like. One thing I noticed about the faceplates is that they are thinner, lighter, and more plasticky when compared to the previous releases. Otherwise, the paint quality is the same and all faceplates look good. She also comes with a menpo or face mask with fangs and red accent colors. You can put this on by taking the hairpiece off and securing it on the faceplate through these holes at the sides. She has 5 pairs of hands in total, with fully opened hands already attached to the figure, a pair of closed fists, a pair of holding hands which fit nicer on the shorter sword, another pair for the longer sword, and you can see here the shape and size difference between these two, and lastly a pair of relaxed opened hands. She also comes with an extra armored right leg that you can swap out with an armored one. You can do this by popping the unarmored leg out of the ball joint and swapping it with this one. Lastly, pop in the feet from the leg you've taken out. It would have been nice if they included an unarmored left leg for a more symmetrical look, but you can use legs from Ronin or Lan's Rider to achieve this look. The only difference is that Samurai's unarmored leg is glossy. Next is a leather skirt or a cape that hangs on her waist. It has wires on both sides and at the bottom with a metallic gold pattern printed on it. It has holes on the top, and these connect to these peg parts that plug into the holes at the back and front of her abdomen. If you want to put the sheaths on, simply take this very small piece off her hip and attach the sheaths through the rectangular hole on the cape, which should then look like this. If you don't want to use the cape, you can use this small gray part instead that plug into the same holes at the front and back, which can then be used in conjunction with the sheaths, so they will look as if the sheath hangs onto her sides. I think this is a clever design aspect where it still looks good even with the cape off. It's attention to detail like this that really makes me say, wow, this is good. These are not part of the accessories, but her shoulder armor can come off. It has a simple round peg so you can move it a bit. The smaller armor piece on her right arm can also come off, and you can see the peg right here. And lastly, this small piece of armor on the left side of her chest can come off, and it has a ball joint which offers some movement, but removing this allows more range of movement for the left arm. The sheaths are one-piece part with a somewhat traditional design, mostly painted matte black with some glossy parts. The longer sword has a traditional design with gunmetal, silver, and red paint finish, with considerable amount of detail on the handguard and handle. Meanwhile, the shorter sword has a more modern look with gunmetal and silver paint. I used the holding hands with bigger holes on the longer one, and the hand with smaller holes with the modern looking sword because I think the fit is a lot better this way. Sliding the hand onto this sword though chipped the gunmetal paint, so just be careful with that. The swords can also be combined using this small part to transform into a double-bladed sword or swallow. I love this look, and this easily reminds me of Darth Maul from Star Wars. It's a good weapon to use against multiple enemies while also increasing the range of attacks. I like that there's a gimmick to it, and this setup can also introduce a new fighting style to catch her opponents off guard. It can also transform into a bifurcated sword like this, which is somewhat similar to the one used by the antagonist in Final Fantasy Advent Children or even Cloud's sword. I can imagine this can possibly create deeper and larger cuts and just create more damage as if it was a bigger or thicker sword. Now I'd like to say that this is a katana and a wakizashi combo, but in terms of length and size, the longer one is more like an odachi, which is basically a longer and larger katana, while the modern looking one should be the same size as a katana. But it turns out I'm wrong, because when compared to other 1:12 scale figures like this one from Yep Studios' Date Masamune, it's still longer. For further comparisons, here's the Nodachi from Figma Ronin, which is even longer and bigger, and here's another katana from Figma Zenitsu from Demon Slayer. In general, the weapons from FALSLANDER characters are bigger. But why? My theory is that they're probably not fighting humans, but maybe monsters twice or even thrice their size. Or perhaps smaller monsters in huge numbers. Maybe they're killing kaiju or monster hunter-sized creatures. Although I'm sure these weapons will be effective against enemies their own size anyway. While other brands tend to include too much accessories that are just redundant and exhausting, Samurai I think has the right balance. I like a minimalist approach when it comes to accessories where we get parts with multiple uses, and we definitely have that here. Just be careful with the small parts though, because if you're not careful, you either break them or lose them. With these accessories, it will be fun to shoot and pose, but not too overwhelming and tiring when it comes to swapping out parts. Figma's Samurai stands at around 14.5 centimeters, which would make her around 5 foot 8 inches tall in real life. Here's how she looks with Revoltech Agent Venom and SH Figuarts Guts in Berserker armor. Here's how she stands with SH Figuarts Spider-Punk and Sentinel Peter B. Parker. Here's how she looks side by side with Savage Crucible's Royal Guard and Snail Shell's Bunny Girl Eileen. Next is my custom Devil Toys Ghost of Kurosawa and V-Toys Demon Asura. Lastly, here's how she looks with Figma Ronin and Lance Reiter. And let's add Hemet Nettle there as well. They're all from the FALSLANDER line, and here's how they look with full armor and faces covered, which adds mystery to the characters and is a recurring theme with this figure line. Here's how they look with some of that armor off, and you can see the similarity in details such as the suit and the straps. And lastly, here's how they look with the least armor on, and this is where you can see the subtle differences between them. Here they are with a calm and stoic expression, and here you can see that Samurai has the most saturated pink hair, followed by Hemet Nettle with a warmer tone and gradient on the tips, and Lance Raider is the palest with a colder hue. Ronin is the odd one out with black hair. Here they are with their fighting faces. Again, not that expressive, and you can also see the difference in eye color. Last are their expressions that show a bit of emotion, with Hemet Nettle sporting a mischievous smile, Ronin with her meditating face, Samurai with a blushing, innocent face, and Lance Reiter with a blushing, smiling face. And of course, there's the difference in chest size. I think this matters because it's attention to detail and it means the same sculpt was not used over and over. The sculptor is Jun Yamaoka of Max Factory, same with the other neco figma, and you should check out his other works, most of them are really good. Now, for a bit of customization, I tried if I could use Ronin's lower body with samurai, but the way their joints are orientated is different, so you'll need to do extensive mods to do that. Samurai and Hemet Metal are totally compatible though, so you can swap their parts out. They all have the same head joints, so head swaps shouldn't be a problem. You can also swap the hair pieces, but they would not fit seamlessly. They also have the same hip joints, so you can swap them around. My favorite setup though is if you combine Ronin's kasa with Samurai's face and mask, because you then get this awesome look. If I could get my hands on another Figma Samurai, then I would definitely put Ronin's head there. Overall, in terms of sizing, Figma will fit with other 1:12 scale figure brands and lines, especially the ones from Japan like SH Figuarts, Revoltech, and Mafex. And I especially love how she looks with my somewhat similarly themed figures. So why would I keep her? I've already said this in my other FALSLANDER reviews, but I really love the contrast between textures and paint finish. This figure has gloss, matte, and metallic paint with a pop of color. And this time we see the contrast between shapes and patterns as well. And as these characters have no background story, I just love thinking about why they have huge weapons and why they look similar. Unlike figures from anime and manga that already have their own established mythologies or lore, these characters encourage imagination, which is actually how we used to play with toys when we were kids. And I don't know if it was intentional by Neco, but the possible connection with gods like Raijin, Fujin, and Anubis just tickles my mind, and I think overall this is why I love the FALSLANDER line. Why would I possibly let it go? As usual with the Figma, there are paint imperfections, but most of them are unnoticeable. The only thing I'm bothered about is the red tie on her head, because these tend to bleed out of lighter colors over time, as we've seen with older Figma. If you feel the same way about this line and already have some FALSLANDER Figma to begin with, then there's no doubt you'd enjoy this figure. I also highly recommend it to anyone who likes samurai warriors and a bit of mythology. Drop a comment below and share this video to your friends so we can talk about how awesome this figure line is. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't already to help my channel grow, and click the link on the right side of this video for more FALSLANDER Figma. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.